You want to know? Oh no, I'm coming off the tail end of COVID here, so I am feeling a lot better. I probably don't sound that great, but I need to get this started. I probably sound a lot better than the end of my last video though. I don't know. I'll determine that once I listen back. You want to know something that bothers me? I have friends, well, acquaintances, I guess, who come November 1st will invariably post to all of their socials some rendition of only 364 days until Halloween. Come February, they whine about how Valentine's Day isn't spooky enough or something. Come June, they're still posting about Halloween and how they wish it was spoopy season again. And that's fine. We all have something we like that takes over a significant chunk of our personality. But I start to lose respect for those poses when they start whining and complaining about Christmas starting before Thanksgiving. I'm sorry. I didn't suffer through your Jack Skellington Facebook boomer memes all year just for you to be a raging hypocrite. I didn't pretend to laugh at your 50th joke about how you wish it was Halloween just for you to be unsupportive towards those of us who enjoy at least one of the holidays in December. You don't get to be annoying and then whine about other people being annoying. That is just not how this works. If you haven't pieced it together by now, my favorite holiday is Christmas. I know. Boo, hiss, it's July, damn it, go away. Well, no, I don't want to. Look, I get it. Consumerism and the pressure to consume is awful on any regular day, and come November, it's downright torturous. However, I don't find myself all that affected by the societal expectation to buy people things, or if I am, I'm not mad about it. I like to window shop. I like to visit the mall and pass by the shiny displays. I like getting hot cocoa to sip on while I stroll through a nearby fancy neighborhood to simultaneously gawk at their beautiful Christmas displays and gag at their excessive wealth. I like decorating my space for this dark and quiet and reflective time of year. I like spending time with my friends and family, and I like that I don't have to feel guilty about it. I know for many, the holiday season is a time of stress and unimaginable pressure, but for me, it's a time to rest. The month of December is one of the only times I can slow down and just do things my way for a while. So, no, I don't care about Christmas decorations being put on sale in July. I don't care about people making their holiday plans several months in advance. I love it. The more plans you make in advance, the more relaxing the season can be, which is probably why it's my favorite holiday. If you find yourself stressed the hell out by all the holiday goings on, I suggest letting the holiday spirit bleed outward on your calendar just a little. Or perhaps consider why you do X or Y thing if you don't enjoy the season. Are you getting personalized gifts for people who don't deserve it? Then stop. Hell, stop buying gifts altogether if that's what you must do. Maybe it'll be less of a Scrooge and remember the true meaning of the holidays. I decided to pick up this Christmas in July series because 1, I love Christmas obviously, and 2, I recently came off of a gnarly COVID infection and didn't want to have to think too hard. It was like I needed a brain massage after trying to think my way through this soup in my head while finishing up my last video. Plus, I needed an excuse to use one of my new little outfits. Look how cute little mini me is. Thank you so much to my buddy Mars for gifting me this commission. It really means a lot, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. So anyway, as I wound my way through the aisles of my local bookstore on the prowl for a fun little easy Christmas read, I came across this series of romance books by Laurie Gilmore. Side note, I haven't watched Gilmore Girls, but I know enough to realize that this person's pen name is a mashup of Lorelai and Rory Gilmore, and I think that's really cute. I just couldn't not mention it. I noticed her title seemed very basic, to put it gently, and as a woman who continues to struggle with the knee-jerk desire to be different and thus defaults to being antagonistic towards anything remotely girly, I had to check myself. After all, what's wrong with pumpkin spice and coffee shops and idyllic small towns? I mean, like Hallmark movies, right? What makes them so terrible? Yeah, people can say it's regurgitated slop all they want. They can say it's stupid, that the script writing is bad and the budget is small and therefore the whole genre is the worst, but no, they're actually not all that terrible. They're fun. They're silly and relaxing and low stakes, and that's why I like them so much. And I won't be ashamed for consuming media I enjoy for fun. And so, after taking a step back, I chose to be more open-minded and grabbed a copy of The Christmas Tree Farm, and I decided to take you all with me on this journey. I wasn't all too sure what to expect. I hadn't really delved into cozy novels before because I wasn't certain I'd like a book that was based more on vibes than anything else, but then I remembered that I love a good gothic romance, so surely there had to be something there for me. So strap in. Grab yourself some iced hot cocoa for this year's Christmas in July episode and experience the Christmas Tree Farm as I did, because it made my heart grow 3 sizes. I'll admit, I came into this book with some low expectations. I can't even say I had any, to be honest. I expected to find myself rolling my eyes and sighing over line after contrived line. I definitely wasn't anticipating a reading level above the 8th grade, but I still thought it would be fun. See, I know I complain a lot, but that's because I enjoy complaining. It's fun to me, tearing a book apart, not necessarily out of malice, but rather curiosity. I like figuring out what makes a certain novel popular, and if it's popular and bad, even better. It's like a dive into the psyche, sorta, kinda. A little bit. Anyway, Miss Laurie Gilmore did not leave me with an amazing first impression, I'm going to be honest. There's a Spotify playlist at the front of the book, and I don't know when this became a common practice, but I normally see music playlists linked alongside fanfiction and roleplay websites, which, don't get me wrong, some of the best writers get their start on those sites, but I guess seeing it in a traditionally published format made me feel weird and kind of exposed, to be honest. And I wasn't necessarily impressed with the song selection. It's just a bunch of today's most popular artists. Taylor Swift, Billie Eilish, Lizzie McAlpine, which is fine, Sabrina Carpenter, Stan Her, Noah Kahan, all of those introspective, hopeless romantic types. I'm not about to sit here and bash anyone for their music taste or anything. This selection of songs and artists just felt a bit uninspired, I guess. And yeah, while these big names will be the most accessible for the average reader, I personally would have preferred it if some smaller artists were sprinkled in there somewhere, just to share the love. Plus, I can't help but feel like someone seeing a new name among a list of some of their favorite authors might encourage them to actually listen to the playlist. By just looking at the damn thing, I knew exactly how it was gonna sound, and I just wasn't interested. Honestly, I would love to know the click-through rate on this playlist because it cannot be that high, surely. Despite this though, I found the most egregious and most off-putting aspect of the book in the first line, and maybe that was on me for reading the blurb on the back, but hear me out. The back of the book reads, Kira North hates Christmas, which is unfortunate since she just bought a Christmas tree farm in a town that's a little too cute for its own good. Okay, now, chapter 1, page 1, reads, Kira North hated Christmas, which was unfortunate considering she was currently the proud owner of a Christmas tree farm in a town that was far too cute for its own good, with residents who couldn't seem to take the hint and leave her the hell alone. Don't do this. Don't plagiarize your own summary. Or if you do, don't make it the first thing your audience is going to read, okay? It looks lazy. If you can't think of a better one, just do what everyone else is doing and stick a bunch of quotes from reviews on the cover. You will be fine. Anyway, yeah, Kira is new in town and she hates Christmas, if you can't tell, even though she bought the town's Christmas tree farm. She's a bit of a sourpuss who got duped into buying a defunct piece of land because homesteading influencers did their job a bit too well on her feed. It wasn't just the algorithm's fault though, it's also her sister's, because she got married and moved to Denmark, leaving her alone effectively for the first time in 24 years of life. Okay, I know how unserious this sounds when it's put that way, and yeah, zoomed out, this is such a stupid issue to get in your feels about. Just go to therapy or something. I don't know. But if I'm going to engage with this novel in good faith, I have to take this main character's issues at least a little seriously. And I can definitely connect with the emptiness that accompanies a feeling of abandonment. And I do mean abandonment. The verbiage used throughout this novel in regards to Kira and her twin sister Chloe's relationship is codependent. Borderline emotionally incestuous, I'd say. But I'm an only child, so I acknowledge that I might just be weirded out by that level of affection because I never had that outside of a romantic relationship, so take what I say with a grain of salt here. While I can't connect with a sisterly love, so to speak, I can connect with the codependence, and on a deeper level than I'd like to admit, but I'm sure we've all been there. There's a certain point in everyone's life where everything we know or think we know about ourselves is just stripped away. We end up feeling empty, lost, confused, and while a normal and more emotionally intelligent person might take this as a sign to get a hobby, a lot of us will end up trying something drastic and short-sighted, downright Icarian, in a vain attempt to get onto some semblance of stable ground. It's kind of like a form of grief, except the person we're grieving is ourselves. It's complicated, and it doesn't feel great, and for a while we may try to numb ourselves by staying busy and distracting ourselves with social media, but in doing so we end up like Kira, crabby, nihilistic, and kind of an asshole. And that's how we find her, as she's sitting on the floor of her brand spanking new, freezing cold, cozy farmhouse, begrudgingly eating one of the cookies gifted to her by a well-meaning and kind neighbor. Apparently, she's been living in this frigid abode for 3 months without a working heater, and apparently it hasn't been an issue until now. Listen, I live in the South Central US, that area that everyone loves to call the Midwest for some reason, despite the Great Lakes being 10 hours away, but I can't imagine she wouldn't be freezing her ass off before Thanksgiving weekend. And she's from Georgia, so 60 degrees Fahrenheit realistically should have had her bundled up in a comforter way before then. I know it's a small gripe, but still. Anyway, already I can tell that this heater is going to be a plot device. Whoever the main love interest is will be fixing this heater. And normally I'd count that against the writer. It's almost too obvious, but Something I realized recently about these types of stories is that it's supposed to be obvious. People don't read romance novels to be shocked or anything. Quite the opposite, actually. The structure is predictable. That's what makes it cozy. It's like watching your favorite shows over and over again. You know what's going to happen. That's what makes it so enjoyable sometimes. And you know what? I respect it. Regardless, the heater needs to be fixed, and fixing a heater takes money, and to exchange currency for goods and services, you kind of need to earn currency. But of course, Kira doesn't have a job. She has a trust, or had. She's naturally used all the money in it to buy this property. So how does she expect to earn this currency? By selling Christmas trees, of course, but you can't just sell Christmas trees without a website or a social media presence. So Kira tries to set all of these digital assets up on a computer with no Wi-Fi access. Apparently that's been out too for way longer than it ever needed to be. Are we seeing the pattern here? Honestly, as much as I hate to admit it, I'm kind of just like her. I'm not a stranger to living in discomfort. There are plenty of times where I've had to make do without electricity, heat and air, or water. Given it was never for any extended period of time, but I never tried to get those things fixed straight away like a regular person would. Maybe it's just an ADHD thing. I don't know. I can deal with anything, but only until it becomes so unbearably inconvenient that I have no choice but to call the internet company and demand to know why their service keeps cutting out for hours at a time each day, which was a thing, by the way. I was working from home at the time, and one day I had had enough. I never really liked to go full Karen, and it's not like I was verbally abusing anyone, but I did ask them to refund me for the hours of work and thus pay I'd lost as a result of their piss poor service. You know what they offered me as a refund? Less than $1. I think it was 60 or 80 some odd cents. Regardless, it was insulting. That's the closest I actually ever came to crashing out. And of course, it wasn't the representative's fault. I took the meager refund just on principle and quietly seethed for the rest of my residence in that apartment complex. So yeah, as frustrating as Kira is with all this mess, I can't really judge her. She can't access the Wi-Fi on her laptop? Fine. She grabs her phone and goes outside, fitted in the finest Pottery Barn chic bed comforter. She's raising her phone to the heavens like it's Simba or the second coming of Jesus when a band of dogs streak across her field of vision and freak her out. Turns out some guy has decided to trespass while taking his dogs on a walk. Luckily for him, Kira's love for dogs melts her heart enough to keep her from standing her ground and bitching him into an early grave. The guy says he thought the place was abandoned, otherwise he would have had them on a leash. Dog owners fitting the stereotype, I see. Listen, I don't care how empty you think a place is. Literally anything can happen at literally any time. Leash your dogs. I can accept cliche plot lines in a romance, but I draw the line at forced pro-dog propaganda. Realistically, this fucker should have had his dogs on a leash. But I guess the safety of not only his pets, but other people comes second to what exactly? Letting them be cute? Dogs aren't cute when their owner is letting them run amok and otherwise be a nuisance to people and other creatures who don't want to be bothered by a hyperactive animal that pants and drools and scratches. Anyway, this guy and Kira have a bit of a sassy back and forth where we learn that he's not from around these parts. He's just visiting. And she somehow finds that and everything else about him attractive, even though he's not her usual type. Kira likes bad boys, and Mystery Man is not that. There are a lot of references to Clark Kent throughout this novel, and I haven't exactly read 50 Shades of Grey, but low-key, it's giving me Christian Grey vibes. Is this a 50 Shades fanfiction? And does that make it a Twilight fanfiction by extension? Who knows? Anyway, I do want to mention here how I can appreciate the use of some uncommon words in Laurie Gilmore's writing. She used trapes around this part in the book, and I honestly really loved it, which is kind of sad and a damning observation for a lot of contemporary fiction, namely romantasy, since I've consumed a lot of that over the past few years. I really need to find better contemporary fiction. Regardless, a lot of newly released books, particularly romance, have, in my opinion, decreased in quality over time. And I'm not going to ascribe it to book talk or whatever, because it's more complicated than that. If anything, consumerism and corporate profiteering are the big problems here. But there are lots of videos talking about that. I don't have anything more meaningful to add than what has already been discussed by others. So, moving on. The conversation continues with snide quips and general hypocrisy, and unfortunately Laurie Gilmore does something that I simultaneously love and hate. I can't stand it when modern references to brands or people are made in fiction. I just don't. The way I see it, if someone reads this thing however many hundreds of years in the future, they might not have a damn clue what people are talking about. I just kind of prefer fictitious approximations, which I guess doesn't really change much now that I think about it, but even then, I can tell and I don't like it. However, there is Elon Musk slander in here and I can't not support that. I can't stand that guy. This comes up because Mr. Christian Kent mentions working in tech and suggests he can help Kira with her phone issues, to which she kind of curls her lip and goes, ew, no thanks, which yeah, fair. Although for some reason I'm waiting for this guy to end up working in biotech and will somehow develop some kind of cure for parvo or something, because obviously we're supposed to end up liking this guy. He can't be a muskrat. He has to work for the more ethical and noble side of tech if he's going to be the love interest. Anyway, Kira makes the guy leave and he leaves with his dogs. So sad. The next chapter switches perspective to the guy. We learn his name's Bennett, by the way. He's talking to his sister Jeannie, I swear I've dreamt of her before, who either works at or owns the Pumpkin Spice Cafe in town. I'm sure people who have read the other 2 books in this series will know what's going on here. The Christmas Tree Farm is book 3 in the Dream Harbor series, but thankfully it looks like the novels stand alone just fine, and I really appreciate that. I can't tell you how many times I've accidentally picked up sequels to a series without realizing it, opened up the book and found myself confused beyond belief in the first chapter. And like, yeah, I know series are series for a reason, but if it's a series where the single books cannot stand alone, they need to be numbered. Like, clearly numbered on the spine. Please, publishers, for the love of God. Anyway, we learn Bennett's staying with his sister for a month or so while she adjusts to engaged life. Apparently, Jeannie's moving out of the Pumpkin Spice Cafe and into her fiance's place. And hey, I'm not judging people for how they move to each relationship milestone, but it feels a bit diet Puritan, you know what I mean? Yeah, they're not waiting for marriage to move in, but engagement is nothing if not a promise to get married. Which kind of gives this book, being 50 Shades / Twilight fanfiction, some merit, considering how Stephanie Meyer's a Mormon. But yeah, I'm sure the month-long stay and the only month-long stay isn't going to create some kind of stress in his and Kira's future relationship, although he can work remotely, so already there's our solution. And what is he working remotely on? Well, I'm glad you asked. He builds storefronts for retailers. You know, people who sell things. So he's a slightly less evil tech bro. I mean, working as a consultant allegedly for a multi-billion-dollar corporation still makes you a capitalist pig, but people do unfortunately have to make ends meet. And it's interesting how that's exactly the skill set Kira needs to get her Christmas tree business off the ground. I mean, really, we all know this kind of thing is coming. Naturally, the story's going to set it up in this way. I'm not saying any of this is a critique, I'm just having fun with it, honestly. But even though Bennett's a boss babe who can be his own boss and work his own hours or whatever, he's not so boss babe in other aspects of his life. Jeannie's engagement serves as a reminder of how, quote, epically bad his romantic prospects have been as of late. Side note, don't use epically, holy shit. We dive into just how bad the dating life's been treating him. He's helped a woman move out of her apparently abusive ex's place, drove another woman to an airport, and a few other women who hate dogs. Jesus. Okay, look, not liking dogs isn't a red flag in a society that accommodates them and their shitty owners above anyone else. And I mean literally anyone else. Disabled people, people of color, nah, they don't need to feel safe in public. You know who does? Dog owners. The author seems to be completely ignoring the rampant abuse of support animals in public places where they should not be. I don't want your pug pissing on my produce. I don't want your, quote, emotional support chihuahua getting so overstimulated it shits right in the middle of aisle 3. I don't want Fido running up to me, slobbering on me, and scratching my legs up because you couldn't manage to keep him calm once he mistook my fuzzy purse charm for a squirrel. All the while, the only thing I wanted to do was get a drink at a nice beer garden. Dog owners really need to get a grip and need to start being held accountable. And we start by dismantling this belief that disliking unruly dogs makes someone a red flag. Anyway, after reaffirming for the umpteenth time that Kira loves dogs, Jeannie invites Bennett to the town hall meeting that night for some reason. He's only, apparently, going to be staying for a month. He's not like a resident or anything. Unless his sister has some kind of ulterior motive and wants to keep him close by using the whole foot in the door technique. Sure, she got him to visit. Now she just needs him to do bigger and bigger favors till he stays in Dream Harbor forever. That kind of sounds cultish. And mind you, that's a brainchild entirely of my own making. This isn't confirmed or even alluded to in the story. I just read a good bit of mystery too, so naturally my brain tends toward that kind of outcome. Anyway, we also learn that the 2 siblings are from Buffalo and that they both left for different reasons. I'm assuming Jeannie left for Dream Harbor to live closer to her now fiance, but Bennett left for a different reason. I was clenching my butthole here, honestly. I was fully prepared to be told outright exactly what the reason was right then. I anticipated the most anticlimactic mystery ever, but thankfully the narration does not answer this question yet, or even in this chapter. Not even the next 5. So kudos, Laurie. You've done what a lot of modern contemporary artists cannot do. Single-handedly rekindling my hope for modern literature over here. Again, here I start to question if siblings are truly so warm towards one another. Look, I don't want to sound like a pervert. I really don't. So I'm not going to mention this again. But since I don't have any siblings, their interactions kind of read a bit, Folgers coffee commercially, if you get my drift. Don't look at me like that, Jean Marie. Like what? Bennett sighed. He had never been good at saying no, hence the moving services and airport rides he'd provided lately. But his sister made it hard. With those big eyes, you know exactly what you're doing. It feels weird to me. That's all I'm saying. Chime in if you want. Let me know if I'm just not connecting with the familial love or if this is also kind of Freudian. There's a bit of a time skip, just a teensy one, and Bennett finds himself at town hall for the meeting. Surprisingly, this is not some dull, gray, lifeless meeting full of octogenarians with nothing better to do. This is a lively little meeting. And I won't lie, I really appreciate this representation of a town meeting. Maybe it's not the most accurate, but it's not too terribly far off depending on where you live. I encourage everyone to join their own local town meetings and get involved. There's really no better way to shape the future. And I mean, you can also make your town hall meetings as fun as this one if you just try. Let me get off my little soapbox here. I've stood on it a bit too long in this video already, and we're not even like 20 pages in. Sorry. When Bennett arrives, his sister introduces him to a lot of different people. I'm not sure how important they're going to be to the story, so if they come up again, I'll mention them. One is a blonde woman named Annie who seems to flirt with him a little. That may or may not end up being a thing later, but I just got those vibes, so I wanted to mention it. You don't just introduce a gorgeous blonde with a bold personality without making her the villain in another woman's story. Everyone's super excited to meet Bennett. All of Jeannie's friends welcome him and all, but her fiance Logan is kind of sus as fuck. I'm as much of an introvert as the next bookworm, but I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too far into it, but although Jeannie's happy to be there, her fiance just kind of puts himself in a corner to read, which, I get sorta, but there's something about this scene that makes me feel a bit off. Why is this guy who's allegedly in love with this woman not at least interacting with something that she clearly loves? He doesn't have to be excited about it, but I don't know, he can at least try to make conversation with her friends. Regardless, I am not getting supporting and loving vibes from this guy, and he better not break her heart. There's nothing more heartbreaking in this world than being met with indifference when you're excited about something. So during the meeting, there's a vote about Die Hard and its status as a Christmas movie. And I have to get on my soapbox again, unfortunately. Sorry. I cannot stand these stupid debates. Is a hot dog a sandwich? Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Shut up. There is a cultural and social understanding of all of these things, an understanding that goes beyond what Merriam-Webster has to say about it. I don't care what the definition of a sandwich or a hot dog is. I don't care that a hoagie isn't technically two pieces of bread. Anyone who brings up these stupid debate topics knows they're being a contrarian shithead, and all they want to do is make people fight over the most meaningless shit. I don't understand people who find that kind of thing fun. I don't. Why are people yelling about bread? Why are people screaming about a snowman being in the background of a scene? Just stop. I'm not interested in everyone getting defensive over food classifications or movie genres. Just give it a rest. Or at the very least, find something more original. And no, I don't mean, is a hot dog a taco? Moving on. I'm only mentioning this because it's funny. Bennett was kind of voluntold to do his sister's book club in the past, logging in remotely for meetings and discussions and whatnot. And naturally, the books that group reads are so not up his alley. Upon his arrival to Dream Harbor, the club had gifted him a copy of the next book they'd be discussing at their monthly meeting. So we get this gem. He'd taken one look at Daddy December and was He'd taken one look at Daddy December and was already thinking up some ways to be busy that day. The last thing he needed was to read about sex when he hadn't had any in months. He needed something about monks or meditation or suffering or something like that. Not Santa smut. So he needs Russian literature. Got it. Of course, all these thoughts about naughty books and sexual deprivation turn his mind to none other than Kira North. And we get this internal narrative struggle that is so typical of any romance. Again, not a critique, but rather an observation. I just think it's really funny when a character's crashing out in their own heads, wondering why they can't get the love interest out of their mind. And of course, I'm sitting there shoving popcorn in my mouth, screaming, because you're the love interest in a romance book. But anyway, the town decides to feed Bennett to the wolves while he's lost in his horny reverie because there's a dead body on Kira's property? Hold on. Pause. Rewind. What? The mayor calls on someone named Alex so they can explain to Bennett and we, the reader by proxy, where this all came from. And I'm going to explain that in a second, but there was just something so glaring here that I couldn't ignore it personally. I appreciate representation and visibility of minorities. However, I think it's important to avoid leaning into borderline caricature to make that happen. Listen to this. Alex tells it best. Where are they? The mayor searched the crowd until a person with lavender hair stood up, giving the non-binary person an unnatural hair color. Florals for spring? Groundbreaking. Obviously, I am not an arbiter of queer issues. It just felt a little weird to define this person by their hair color when there's a common and quite offensive joke made in conservative groups about blue hair and pronouns. And yeah, reclaiming and whatever, but still, personally, it felt really weird to me and I didn't like it. But anyway, this dead body, right? The previous owners of the Christmas tree farm were a married couple who didn't have kids named Edwin and Ellen. And I'm just now realizing how creepy that is, but all right, it's a nitpick, I know, but jeez. After Ellen passed away, Edwin became reclusive. His health declined, and after a few years, he too unfortunately passed away. After his death, a letter was found in the house stating that he'd buried something, quote, precious on the farm without specifying what or where. The town, although curious about this buried precious, was not allowed to seek out this mystery because the inheritor of the land, Edwin's cousin, wouldn't allow them to desecrate the last place their family member lived. So naturally, that means Edwin killed and buried his own wife. Clearly. But how does Bennett come into this? Well, since Kira's been kind of an asshole to her neighbors, they want to send a neutral party over to check in with her and make sure she hasn't stumbled across any dead bodies. Bennett's new in town and he isn't staying long, so naturally, he's their only hope. He caves, sorta, and at the first hint of acquiescence, the mayor deems the whole matter settled. And so Bennett goes to check on Kira North the next morning. Miss North hears the dogs outside before she knows it's Bennett. Believing that he's just a random customer, she quickly tries to freshen up and prepares to make nice so that she can get a photo of the heckin' doggos for her farm's socials. Which is, of course, in sharp contrast to how cold and inhospitable she's been to the other residents of Dream Harbor since moving there. People get desperate when money's tight. Only hashtag girl bosses would get it. It was at this point in the book when I realized Laurie Gilmore doesn't use quotation marks. She uses apostrophes for her dialogue. I'm actually shocked I didn't catch on to this sooner. Normally, I'm really particular about formatting. So I guess the fact I didn't notice until 30 pages in is some kind of indication that I've been enjoying the story, I guess, despite my constant griping about tangentially related and mostly minor personal issues. So, yay! Kira's obviously like, what the fuck, dude? Why are you here? And Bennett, the fast thinker he is, says he's on the hunt for a wife. I mean, a Christmas tree. Why are you back? Kira's dreams of Christmas doggy photo shoots fizzled out. Elizabeth, the biggest of the three dogs, nudged against her hand. Kira gave her head a good scratch. These dogs weren't wearing sweaters, but they were still pretty darn cute. The sign said open. Kira frowned. And you're here to buy a tree? The man smiled. I'm considering it, if I can find the right one. The right one? She huffed. It's a tree, not a wife. Through this interaction, we also learn that Kira's finally bought a coat. Yay! No more hobo-core couture. The pair continues with some small talk, and this is the point where they actually learn one another's names. Bennett hits her with the I know when she tells him hers because, she's like the talk of the town and all. Kira's almost incredulous, wondering why no one wants to come to buy a tree despite the farm clearly having an open sign up and a new website, but she just doesn't get it. Miss Influencer doesn't understand basic marketing, sadly, and hasn't considered that certain demographics respond better to certain advertising strategies. For example, more insular communities will respond better to word-of-mouth marketing. They trust their neighbors more than they trust Google Ads because they've developed a relationship with the people around them, a relationship often built on trust, mutual respect, and experience. And Bennett kind of points this out before suggesting that she should attend the tree lighting ceremony at the end of the week. Begrudgingly, Kira admits to herself that he kind of has a point. She so graciously tells Bennett that she'll leave him to find his perfect wife tree and comments that a woman named Iris will help him out. He can find her in the shed nearby. And this makes Bennett wildly uncomfortable because that shed is apparently super ancient. He tells her as much, and this somehow sends the woman into a comically oversized panic for the situation. Now, I don't want to speak too soon. This could be some kind of foreshadowing. Maybe she's a survivor of some kind of building collapse or something, which would certainly explain the overreaction. I mean, clearly, if the structure hasn't fallen yet, it isn't likely to fall in the next, 10 minutes, However, if there isn't any reason for her to fear this kind of thing, I can't really defend it. There's a line between being goofy and being corny, and I fear this is just a step over that line. Regardless, Kira rushes to the shed, screaming out, Iris, Iris, you're in danger, while Bennett's jogging after her, saying, yo, chill, it's really not that serious. Not that serious? Kira spun toward him. Not that serious? Then why did you say it? Why did you waltz in here and start spouting helpful little tidbits like maybe that booth is a death trap? I never said death trap. Kira was out of intelligible words.
This guy, why was he even here? How about I just go in and check it out for you? How about you go the hell back to Buffalo? Jesus, someone's fighty. I can't even defend her reaction in any way. Kira's entirely in the wrong here. The only slack I can give her is the fact that I also hate looking like a fool, and that can make anyone feel defensive, but I can't condone being that much of a meanie head to someone who's like just trying to help. Oh yeah, just like many other romances in which the Spitfire woman's from the South, her little Southern accent comes out blazing because she's just so angry. I can't decide how I feel about that trope. I mean, it's not like I see it absolutely everywhere. However, I hear all about it from lots of other women in my area, ones who seem to take pride in being standoffish and low-key kind of mean. Maybe Northerners find it charming. I don't know. Maybe I'm just projecting. I just personally don't find it cute, though I'm sure that was the purpose of making Kira that way in the first place. Anyway, Kira sends Iris away to take a break back at the house while Bennett checks out the shed. And Iris gives her a little wink, which naturally makes Kira so incredulous. Again, like, she's the queen of being shocked at the fact that all of this stuff is happening around her, but she doesn't know she's in a romance novel, so like, what could I do? Girl is in such deep denial. She wants him. She wants him bad. After Bennett scopes out the exterior, he heads in, and Kira follows. And when he turns to face her to let her know that it all looks stable enough, she realizes how so very close they are. Damn, he's so tall and handsome, but not in a way that Kira likes, of course, obviously. And his thighs are so juicy. His thighs are juicy. I'm sorry for worrying you like that, he said. I was only trying to help. So is that your thing? She snapped. You get off on helping people? He blinked. No, I wouldn't say I get off on it. And then he asks what gets her off, and she starts blushing and gets all flustered. I'm not gonna lie. I consider myself to be quite childish. I don't even know if childish is the right word, but what I mean is I can't ever pass up the chance for a good innuendo or a bad one. If there is any opportunity to make a sex joke or a your mom joke, I take it. Boo me if you want to. I know it's so lowbrow, but I can't help it. Crude jokes are the funniest to me. Oops. But anyway, even though Kira's a blushing mess at the innuendo being thrown back at her, she has a small moment of vulnerability. She reveals that she's been helped all her life and that this whole Christmas tree farm venture is the first thing she's actually ever done for herself. And Bennett, so tall and wise and thick, says, accepting help is different than letting other people do everything for you. What's this? Barefaced human connection? And sexual tension? Oh no! God. My voice is still cracking. So we're back in Bennett's brain, and this guy is going absolutely feral. He wants to pull her close so bad. He wants to fix her so bad. He has, quote, every reason not to, just like every love interest in every romance novel. But hey, again, they don't know they're in a romance novel. So again, I'll let it pass. It's kind of cute anyway. So what does he do? He asks about the main house. Kira tells him it's fine. Everything's totally normal. And he hits her with the, you sure? This is the point where I really let myself lean into the cheesy romanceness of this book, and it's probably because I'm more similar to Kira than I'd like to admit. I myself am quite an independent woman. I've had to learn a lot and do a lot of pretty important things on my own, so I've just defaulted to insisting that everything's fine and that I can handle it. I carry my own bags, I forget to take turns and let others go first, and it's not because I feel entitled to like existence or whatever. It's just the way I've always done things. If I wanted something, I had to go do it alone. It's like just the default. And so now that I'm older and I'm aware of this and I'm trying so hard to break these tendencies, it really does help sometimes when someone asks if I'm sure. It gives me an opportunity to slow down and like actually think about the situation. You know how people will tell you that there are a million ways to say you love someone, and it's a list of things like, did you sleep well? Have you eaten today? Tell me when you get home. That's what are you sure is to me. It's not 100% effective. Sometimes when I'm too overwhelmed, I kind of knee jerk in the opposite direction and I double down despite clearly not being sure. It's a thing I'm working on. Okay, it's hard to break a decades-long habit. Sometimes when I'm at the precipice of doubling down but fighting super hard against it, you know how emotional brain and rational brain can fight, I do find myself responding like Kira does here. I guess if you really wanted to, you could maybe look at my boiler for me. I don't seem to be getting much heat, so I mean, if it would be fun for you, I'll check it out. This man! Is the bar in hell? I don't know, maybe, probably. But I can't pretend like this Bennett guy isn't doing it for me. And not in that way yet. Anyway, the lovebirds head back to the farmhouse and Bennett's immediately like, you can't live here like this. And I got so excited. I sat there like a sicko dreaming of the forced proximity this could turn into. Live with me at my sister's old place until I can get all this fixed. Uh-oh, we fell in love. Darn. Cliche? Yes. Unrealistic? Also, yes. Romantic? Not as much in the real world, but on paper, abso-freaking-lutely. But naturally, Kira can't give in that easily. Her response is like, so her. I can, and I do, and I'm fine. The boiler's in the basement if you want to look at it. Otherwise, feel free to get the hell out. But this doesn't faze Bennett too much. He thinks of leaving for a brief moment, but damn, it's just too cold in there. He checks it out and comes back with the sad news. Kira needs a new boiler, and she can't afford one. Bennett bites back the urge to offer to buy her a new one. Clearly, that's a psychotic thing to do, but, quote, she was cold and he hated it. I'm gonna marry him. Kira thanks him by letting Bennett stay for coffee, and they have a bit of a more productive and less hostile conversation. Kira reveals why she bought the farmhouse and all, admitting outwardly that she'd been influenced. She hints that her sister's, quote, gone, and obviously that phrasing was 100% intentional by the author. People don't talk like that about someone who's only moved away instead of, like, dying. And while I can appreciate the levity that the implication that her sister died causes, I can't really support it at the expense of making the characters behave in ways that simply aren't realistic. This exchange doesn't even have the love makes people behave irrationally argument to prop it up, you know? It just irked me a little. It wasted a quarter of a page, and it didn't exactly add anything of value that saying her sister moved away couldn't have, except for the humor. And there's more than enough humor in this book as it is. In my opinion, this just wasn't very necessary. Admittedly, a small gripe, but a gripe nonetheless. Eventually, Bennett offers to help a little more, telling Kira he can call his dad for advice on the ancient radiators and go from there, more or less. Kira, of course, tells him he doesn't have to do all that. Consider it a favor to me, he said, leaning toward her across the table just a little, just enough to watch her blush spread. It gets me off, remember? I can't. I'm sorry, y'all. It's just so attractive. This idea of someone who can keep up, you know, someone who's intelligent, quick-witted, a bit sassy. It's fun to me. I'm sure it's fun to a lot of people. It's exciting when your romantic interest goes off script. I can only speak for myself, but it kind of gives me a brain rush. I'm no psychologist, but I can only assume that the physiological excitement just fills the brain with lots of yummy, nummy chemicals like endorphins, serotonin, oxytocin, whatever. Love it. So later on, Bennett's working late, but he's no singer, or he would be working late if his sister hadn't rudely thrown off his groove by texting him. Jeannie asks when Bennett will go back to Kira's, because he has to go back, because the mayor had a dream that, quote, something important was buried on the property. So does the letter not exist? Was this all just to placate some weird mayor who thinks he has prophetic dreams? This part didn't really make sense to me. Bennett was told about the letter at the town hall meeting. I guess you can try and spin it to imply that the mayor had a dream that day or something, but everyone already knows that something important is buried there because of the letter. I don't know. This part was weird and I didn't like it. Felt like filler and an excuse to use text bubbles. Maybe Laurie Gilmore should have left it out. Regardless, Bennett agrees to check on Kira one last time. The sassy woman can't help but roll her eyes once he returns to her property. She has too much on her plate, as is. Like the whole having no customers thing, for example. Keeps a gal super busy. Kira begins to question her first impression of the guy and admits that he most likely isn't trying to mansplain to her and only wants to help. I do find it kind of hilarious how misogyny is her only real issue. Don't get me wrong, misogyny is icky and woven into the fabric of our society, and it leads to deadly outcomes for men and women alike, but the dude was just offering to help. I feel like once you kind of take a step back and get a larger view of what's going on in the world around you, it's easier to discern what misogyny is or isn't. And while you can squint your eyes and tilt your head just right and see Bennett's offers to help as such, let's be real, it's really not. Kira's struggling, clearly. If she wasn't and Bennett was still trying to offer his help, then yeah, totally misogyny, and most likely subconscious misogyny at that, which doesn't necessarily make it better, but I don't know. I live in the real world. You know what I mean? Despite being conflicted about this guy, Kira really wants to have a warm house, so she lets him in to work on the radiators. But of course, she can't just be kind or gracious about it. Oh no. Maybe later you can find a bunch of old ladies who need help crossing the street. I would totally attribute this to some lighthearted banter if she wasn't so annoyed when Bennett responds in kind. She is constantly sighing and folding her arms and rolling her eyes simply because she can't take what she dishes out. I know it's supposed to be cute or something. I know he's supposed to wear her down and soften her up over time, but I'm starting to find her attitude kind of annoying. For example, the pair talk a bit about Iris. Again, they go back and forth with the "this is your fault, you said it was going to collapse, no I didn't" thing. And Kira was horrified to find her own mouth inching up to mirror his. She shook her head. Time to go. Not time to stand around smiling at this Clark Kent lookalike. Maybe she'd find a biker or a parolee on her way that she could make out with, just to remind herself who she really was. Get a grip, man. Honestly. I understand wanting to be different, and maybe the only way Kira could set herself apart from her twin was her taste in men. I don't know. But I find myself having to remember that this is an adult woman. She is not a surly 18-year-old. Maybe I'm a bit different when it comes to attraction, and that's why I don't see what the big deal is. I don't want to imply looks aren't important, because to a certain degree they are. I'm not interested in dating someone who doesn't take care of themselves, you know? But if they can make me laugh, if they can be goofy and let me be goofy too, then it's practically a done deal. It doesn't matter if they're tall, short, skinny, fat, masculine, feminine, whatever. So that could be why I'm not able to connect with Kira on this. I'm not sure though. Let me know, is the average person so invested in their type that they can't really see themselves pursuing anyone outside of it? She does some chores, manages a bit of her business, takes photos for the gram, and checks some responses to her help wanted ad for a Santa. I know that seems like such a specific thing to mention narration-wise, so of course my foreshadowing senses started tingling, and I couldn't help but feel like Bennett would somehow end up being Santa, and Kira would somehow end up on his lap. If it ends up not happening, Laurie, you will have missed a big opportunity, and I will be disappointed. Since Kira's run out of things to do at this point, she goes back into her house to check on the sexy man, and boy is he so sexy. He's got the classic half rolled up flannel sleeve and some muscly forearms. He's squatting and his jeans are doing him plenty of favors, if you know what I mean. He hands over a piece of paper he'd found behind one of the radiators. It's a list. The script is all smudged over the course of time, but they can make out a few entries. Some Tiffany lamps, a china set, and Ellie's baubles. These have to be the buried preciouses. Neither of them question it too much though, assuming it's a will of sorts, I guess. With the job done, Bennett goes to leave and Kira doesn't want him to. But she can't just say that. We get a brief narration of her inner struggle. She's a twin. She's always had someone there with her from the beginning, and now that other half of her isn't joined at the hip. She would be desperate enough to make him stay, but the concern that passes over his face when he sees her stuck in her pensive state makes her overcorrect, I guess, and she starts to shoo him out. Unfortunately, she makes the fatal mistake of offering him a free tree for all his trouble. She seems to believe that once he has that tree, he can stay away forever. Except Bennett doesn't have the time to cut it down right now, so he'll have to come back. Darn! And then when he asks Kira to help him pick it out, she has to be all prickly and says, I don't think I can live up to your perfect tree finding standards. He held her gaze for a moment before answering, and Kira wished there was a dog or two between them to break the tension. I think you'll live up to them just fine. I am squealing. Honestly, Bennett is the only one making this budding romance exciting. I know it's kind of supposed to be that way until he starts breaking through her dark and tortured walls, but I'm glad someone's keeping this ship afloat, you know? I'm going to take this time to mention something I saw really quickly. At the beginning of chapter 6, there's a phrase used that I'm pretty sure people don't really appreciate anymore. Obviously, I'm not the sole decider of what's right and wrong, but I've seen lots of discussion about the phrase, quote, your vibe attracts your tribe, and the consensus seems to be that it's not really cool when taking into account how tribalism has been used as a conduit for anti-Indigenous and anti-Black propaganda since the beginning. It seems like the use of that kind of phrase just isn't really appreciated. So maybe consider a wider array of beta readers? Anyway, now it's time for the tree lighting ceremony festival thing. Bennett checks in with his sister, who's giving out free hot chocolate to the attendees. He offers to help naturally, but you know what they say about too many cooks in the kitchen. Jeannie sends him off to enjoy the festival. Bennett's walking along the crowd until he comes up on a really long line for a booth that smells like waffle cones and caramel. Caramel? God damn it. Which one am I going to use? I don't say this word very often in my day-to-day, so I don't even know how I pronounce it. I'm going to go with caramel. That's just how it came out the first time. Immediately, I knew this was a Stroop waffle stand, but I guess this guy doesn't. I thought they were pretty well known. I mean, they sell them in little boxes at the grocery store, but okay. He gets in line and who should be in front of him but none other than Miss Kira North. She kind of tells him to stop stalking her, and Bennett tries to deflect by saying he just so happens to really like, quote, these waffles? So Kira calls his bluff. He doesn't know shit about Stroop waffles, but she does. Bennett says he's impressed, and Miss Thag naturally has to be weird about it again. You're impressed that I can read the sign? Or that I know that they're thin waffles with caramels sandwiched between them and that they originate from the Netherlands? Holy freaking info dump, Batman. This read as so out of character for me. I get wanting to contextualize something that the audience may be unfamiliar with, and honestly, I can respect it, but this is not the way to do it. She went full encyclopedia on the guy's ass in a way that that doesn't sound natural in the slightest. Why couldn't the lore of stroopwafels been sprinkled around in the scene? Describe how it looks and tastes once he gets a sweet treat. Maybe Kira can stop being so cagey and offer him a fun fact after Bennett decides he loves those little things. It can certainly display a love for food that makes her instantly want to bond with people. It's not totally out of the realm of possibility. People are nicer when they're eating. And it's more believable than just vomiting information on the reader all at once, because we know who this information is really for. Regardless, if you've got getting knocked into one another as a means to break the touch barrier on your romance bingo card, go ahead and mark it off. Like I've said before, it's supposed to be predictable. It's supposed to be cliche. It's how the genre works. And I loved it. He holds her by the arms to keep them both from toppling over, and now that they're close, he realizes how attractive she is and how much he wants her. Apparently, a certain look in her eyes indicates she might want him too. She blushes and starts to be a little more nice by saying, well, you're entitled to get your waffles too if you want them, I guess, before turning around to stand in line properly with her back to him. She can't stop thinking about him and the fact that he smells like peppermint and that his body's practically a space heater. Absent-mindedly, when she reaches the front of the line, she orders 2 stroopwafels. She's used to ordering 2 because of her sister. Fair enough. I'm sure Bennett's existence wasn't helping her mental clarity either. Kira ends up with 6 stroopwafels. She hadn't realized they came in orders of 3, and obviously she doesn't want them to go to waste, so what does she do? She grabs Bennett's sleeve and leads him behind some of the vendors' tents. She's like a drug dealer, I guess. Bennett teases her about it. She goes to leave, but he tells her to stay. Not because he wants her there, clearly, but because there's a heater nearby. And the chilly woman isn't going to say no to that. When Mr. Man asks about the house, Kira says everything's better, and she can use the fireplace now that it's been clean, except it's too bad she doesn't know how to start a fire. Bennett tries so hard not to offer to help, but eventually he has to. It's just who he is. Once again, we're pulled into the dizzying mind of Kira. We know she doesn't do nice guys, and the fact that this nice guy is making her feel something isn't normal. It all clicks into place, though, when she realizes that she hadn't needed nice before. Her sister was the nice in her life, and now she's off in Denmark, and Kira doesn't have any nice anymore. So she agrees to let him help. Sorta. And only after Bennett wipes some crumbs off the corner of her mouth does Kira realize how close they're standing together. Can't have that! She steps back to save room for Jesus and tries to look anywhere else except in his eyes, and she finds some reindeer. Like the animal lover she is, she makes her way to the pen and starts petting and talking to them. Cue the "you're not as scary as you make yourself out to be" conversation that, once again, is typical of a Hallmark romance. Not that I'm complaining. Kira vaguely mentions that her sister is a sweet one, and that naturally leads to some mild prodding from Bennett. She admits to herself that it was exhausting keeping up that edgy facade with this guy who's so insistent on being nice, so she kind of sort of lets him in a little bit. She mentions missing her sister when she almost starts crying. Petting the animals makes her feel better. Cool beans. All's normal here. Bennett asks how she's feeling about announcing the grand opening of her Christmas tree farm. She says she's excited and prepared, but she's terrified in reality. Not that she admits this to him, of course. Here we learn more about how her life was more or less set up for her before she left. Her father made a position for her at his company. Her mom had suitors lined up for her, sons of wealthy acquaintances. And if this venture doesn't work, she won't really have anything left. But it's fine. She's got it all under control. She tells Bennett that she's got people to help her with the flow of the tree selling process. All she's missing is a Santa. But Bennett says even he has limits and declines the opportunity to be of service without having been asked in the first place, which is amazing. But he looks so cute in red, or so Kira says, before slinking off into the crowd. This, of course, drives him crazy, and in the small space of time that he's reeling with this compliment, he loses her. Jeannie, her fiance Logan, and Annie the blonde find him in the crowd and make their way over. They kind of catch up. He tells them that there's nothing on the property. I haven't found anything except an old house and a woman trying to run the place by herself. Uh-oh. Even his sister can tell that he's doing it again. That thing where he tries to help women and eventually is taken advantage of. He assures everyone that it's not like that and that she doesn't even want his help. She doesn't even like him, and he does not like her. Not little liar pants. Kira's now on stage, which she naturally hates because of some embarrassing thing that happened when she was forced into pageants as a child. Totally fair and valid to hate it, but I kind of rolled my eyes because, of course she has stage fright. She's the perfect mix of damsel and standoffish. But at least she's no Mary Sue, so I'll take it. Regardless, when it's her turn to speak and announce the reopening of the Christmas tree farm, she does so, and she's a bucket of nerves until her eyes find Bennett's face in the crowd. He grounds her, just like her sister used to. She makes it through her little elevator pitch. The town is super excited about it, by the way, and Kira tries to get away and go back home as soon as she comes off the stage, but she runs into someone. I wonder who it could be. He pulls the "where are you running off to" move, and Kira puts on her impassive persona, completely denying even to herself that she wants to stick around for longer. But thankfully, Bennett points out to the Santa on duty at the festival, maybe he can help at the farm. I mean, it's a good reason to stay, right? So off they go to wait in line for Santa, but not before Kira jokingly accuses him of wanting to get out of the Santa gig, and certainly not before Bennett jokingly accuses her of having a Santa kink. While in line, they're both talking about what they want for Christmas. Bennett wants snow. Kira hates that idea, obviously. He also hints at wanting something more, but naturally refuses to tell Kira what exactly that is. When he returns the question, she replies that she wants Santa at her farm every weekend till Christmas, and also some home improvement. She starts to list off some things that need fixing before quitting part of the way through, realizing that she's talking to Bennett, after all. Oh, and socks. She wants socks. Kira's sister Chloe wakes her up the next morning, and I mean morning. Or I guess morning for most people. I'm up at 5 a.m. most days. Anyway, it's 6 a.m. and Chloe's calling. Yay! They exchange mild pleasantries, asking each other how things are going, and then Laurie Gilmore hits us with a curveball because apparently it's a FaceTime call and not like a normal call. It's a small detail admittedly, but going from groaning into the phone and Chloe studying Kira through the phone really messes with the perception of what's going on here. The first bit, to me, implies a normal, regular call. The second one is the total opposite. Obviously. Personally, it could have been made a little clearer that this was a video call, not a voice call. Like I said, small, minor detail, but it was a little confusing. They keep on talking, and the discussion once again reaffirms that Kira loves animals, because Chloe keeps listing off her many crazy ideas back in Georgia that involved somehow saving or protecting them. I was getting kind of annoyed about it at this point, but I expected that there would be plenty more opportunities for other characters to tell the audience that Kira is a nice person actually, because she'd never harm a poor innocent animal or something. Joy. Eventually, Chloe offers to lend Kira some money, and the proud woman naturally declines, suggesting that her sister needs to save her money for all those little Danish babies she'll have one day. And shocker, we learn Chloe really loves babies. I really can't help but feel like this author is using these personality traits as a replacement for moral alignment. And this really should not be the case. It's so uninspired, really. And in a way that goes beyond cliche, it's shallow. Low-hanging fruit, you know? I'm not a fan. Everyone knows, right? That someone who likes babies and animals are good and morally upright for some reason, but that often is not the case, and doubly so with dog lovers. No offense. I think what bothers me is that people who claim to love these poor, defenseless, and innocent creatures see themselves as good because of that aspect of their personality, when in reality, they're often not the nicest folks you'll ever meet. And that's kind of the impression that this author is giving me, as an individual, I mean. I try so very hard not to make judgments on an author's character based on what or how they write, but this is a bit glaring. This is being shoved down my throat. It's not great for me. Personally. But anyway, after the sisters hang up, Kira goes back to sleep for a few more hours and then prepares for the opening day of her Christmas tree farm. While she and Iris are waiting for customers to arrive, they end up talking about Edwin, the former owner of the property. Kira hands over a couple letters and that list Bennett found for Iris to look over. It's a will and a letter from Edwin to his cousin to request a visit. For all intents and purposes, it seems like a man who is simply trying to tie up his affairs before his passing. Nothing too crazy. And Iris talks about finding raccoons in some luggage bags one time in the past. Kira thinks this is, quote, cute, and Iris disagrees because they're pests. I'd make this into a drinking game, but I don't want to kill anyone, or myself, for that matter. The conversation meanders to Kira again and why exactly she bought the farm with no family or desire to even sell trees to begin with. And for once, she comes all the way out with it, explaining that she wanted to get away from home after her sister left and didn't realize all that came along with the aging property. And even though that takes a lot for her to admit, Iris thinks that Kira's story is amazing and daring and awesome and cool, and that makes Kira feel better. How sweet. The first customers to pull up are friends of Iris's. They talk and joke and banter with one another as old friends do, until one of the ladies, Carol, mentions how worried they were that no one was going to buy the property because of the rumors. Kira, who was unaware that there even were rumors up until this point, is horrified, but not for long, because business begins booming and she finds herself too busy to even think about it. Time for the love interest to arrive. Bennett rolls up with his sister and her fiance, and while the three of them are waiting around for a couple of friends to join them, Hazel and her partner Noah, he spots Kira, and Kira spots him. And as she jaunts up to him with a wide grin, the poor bastard falls in love. His world stops. She's illustrious, gorgeous, amazing, beautiful, and sexy, of course. They all kind of chat a bit, but the chatting isn't important and neither are the introductions. It's all a formality. He gets so totally lost in Kira's eyes and her smile, so pretty. And it isn't just her, it's everything. The little not-so-death trappy shed is decorated. There are lots of Christmas lights strung about with pleasing tunes playing over the speakers. Kira's created an amazing and aesthetically pleasing event here. The effort and time and care that went into every detail is astounding. And at that moment, he decides to hell with the snow. He wants her for Christmas. Mariah Carey is shaking in her boots right now. I really liked this part, honestly. I can't help it. I think it's so cute. I'd give anything to make someone feel this way. And maybe I have, I don't know. I'm sure we all have at some point, right? Because within the pages of a book, you get to mind read a little, and that's super duper sweet. Bennett could stare at this woman forever, but unfortunately the customer service cabin needs more hot cocoa. So she scampers off after hovering around for just a little longer. Unfortunately, the success of the day declines quickly after the big buff college guys Kira hired to transport trees to vehicles all call out. Kira's trying super hard to keep it together and not panic when she sees Bennett and co. heading back to the front of the farm with trees slung over their backs. Popping in here real quick to condemn the editors. You missed an inappropriate use of an apostrophe on page 113. Wagons is a plural, not a possessive. Shit really grinds my gears. Do better. Anyway, the dread fills her when she sees her man from a distance. She's so disappointed in herself. She'd wanted to impress Bennett, show him how capable she is, and now the illusion's been shattered. She doesn't even say anything to him. He can just tell something's not right. And as much as Kira wants to ask for help, she can't let herself. Honestly, poor thing. Unfortunately, that's relatable. A bit too relatable. He asks if she's okay while she insists that nothing's wrong. All the while, there's a little old lady and her husband in the background trying to lift a massive tree onto the roof of their car with no help. Kira rushes off to help them and Bennett follows. Of course, he steps in to help all of them, but Kira stares daggers into that man's soul and he steps back. Uh-oh. The stubborn young woman tries desperately to get this tree strapped to the car, but the rope gets all sorts of tangled and people are watching. Someone nudges in to help her. Kira almost bites his head off, but stops a little short when she realizes that the helping arm belongs to Logan rather than Bennett. Kira's forced to step away and let him handle it. When she looks around, Bennett and Noah are also helping people pack up their spruces and furs. While standing off to the side, Jeannie comments that she's shocked that her brother wouldn't help. Kira informs her that she specifically asked him not to. When pressed for more information as to why, she explains that she just wants to be independent. And just like her brother, Jeannie clocks Kira's answer as total bullshit and tells her as much, but in much nicer terms. Being independent doesn't mean you don't need help. And besides, she said, gesturing over to the men, they love it. Makes them feel all manly and stuff. And that actually seems to ring true for a lot of men in my experience. And yeah, while it might be a symptom of patriarchy, there are plenty of other people like myself who also enjoy helping others. So, just let people help. Is all I'm saying. After the three women stare longingly at the men's forearms, Kira snaps herself out of her daze and thanks them for their men's kindness, but she can handle the rest. Jeannie doesn't buy it. Hazel insists on staying to help, and Kira can't decline before they walk off to grab some more rope. At the end of the night, everyone's chilling on the porch and enjoying some hot cocoa together while Kira's pouting off to the side. It's a little bit of a wholesome moment with everyone offering to put her into contact with people they know so that the success of the farm can be ensured year-round. And this is suddenly acceptable to Kira because business advice is totally not the same as asking for help or being helped. Sure. Sure, whatever, fine, okay. And just as Bennett has been enamored with her earlier, Kira's now enamored with him. Beneath the glow of the dim porch light, he looks just so incredibly handsome, and the way that he looks at her ignites the flames of passion. Her thoughts turn all wicked and dirty, but before she can follow that path too far, everyone gets up to leave. Bennett stays behind for a bit. He can't stay there to satisfy either of their, sensual hungers, since he'd carpooled, but he tells... Did I say card-pooled? But he tells Kira where she can find him and suggests she should stop by the cafe sometime. Just to try the coffee or something. And Kira agrees kinda, as she does, and off the man goes into the night. A few days pass and she doesn't show up to the cafe. This makes Bennett so sad, and he convinces himself that she really does hate him and that whatever spark he thought was there was just a figment of his imagination, until he runs into her while walking his dogs near the cafe. They flirt for a while. Kira does the unthinkable and invites him to her property openly, but only to let his dogs out to get some exercise, of course. No ulterior motive there. He accepts and walks his happy ass back up to his temporary lodgings to finally get some work done. He'd tried to do anything for the past few days, but his mind kept wandering. He sets himself up with his laptop on the couch, feet kicked up, and he's happy until, right on time, he gets a text from an ex, Nicole Allen. And this is where we learn about the secret he's been keeping. He can't stay away from this woman. They've been on and off and on and off again since college. She is the reason he left for California, and when she'd tired of him, he was too ashamed to go back home. Nicole is a classic damsel, always begging for Bennett's help and then discarding him once she's bored or satisfied or whatever. He decides to ignore her "I'm in town, let's meet up" texts, but that doesn't stop him from basically psyching himself out. He convinces himself that he's somehow subconsciously using Kira as a placeholder for Nicole and is only attracted to her because she, quote, needs him, even though she's said she doesn't. But I guess that doesn't matter. He would have decided to stay away from her entirely if it weren't for the dogs. He can't deny them some playtime. So he resolves himself to take Miss North up on her offer, but only as discreetly as possible to avoid any shenanigans. Okay, so I may have lied about the text bubble format only being used once in the book. I apologize. I flipped through the pages earlier on and didn't see any more, so I made a complete generalization. It looks like all in all, the chat bubbles are used 3 times in the novel. And with this instance of it being used to introduce Nicole, it gets a pass. So you know how Bennett was a little grouchy because Kira hadn't shown up to the cafe? Well, he hadn't shown up to the farm in a few days. So it's Kira's turn to be grouchy. She and Iris are at the skating rink, and of course, Kira doesn't know how to skate. It's okay, neither do I. She has my solidarity there. Iris skates off, leaving Kira clinging to the sidewall while she goes and chats with Bennett and Jeannie. Oh, hell. Cue Kira and Bennett shenanigans, followed by man teaching woman how to skate shenanigans. Their bodies are close. He's touching her wrist. He picks her up bridal style when a peewee hockey brat cross-checks them for no reason. He's totally, quote, epically failing at this whole ignoring Kira thing. Stop saying epically. Holy shit. When they're off the ice and he sets her down, Kira doesn't step back like she normally does. She leans into him a little more and says a saucy line about how she hopes it was good for him. And God, it was good, but he really shouldn't do this. And he doesn't. He shuts her down. He says it was good, but he's gotta go. Cue the light draining from poor Kira's face and Bennett scampering off like a coward. The next morning ushers in a glorious winter storm warning, which I'm sure will not be an excuse for Bennett to check in on Kira before they are both snowed in with nowhere to go, but who knows. Kira's looking out the window at the gray-white sky, feeling sorry for herself while thinking of her sister yet again. I get it. I know I'm prone to bouts of self-pity. It's super annoying to deal with, but man, reading about it as an outsider makes me cringe a little bit. When she's done lamenting about how much she's held her sister back, Kira decides to go outside. She's resolved herself to find Bennett because, why not? He's attractive and she's lonely. I mean, whatever works, right? She doesn't have to venture far because it would seem that Bennett's taken her up on her previous offer. She stands there at a distance watching him let his dogs out on her property. Cue the racing thoughts, and she runs away. Or tries. You can't run away from fate, after all. Bennett sees her before she can get the hell out of Dodge and calls her over. They both end up kind of talking about a nearby decrepit old barn. It's only when Kira teases him about wanting to fix it that she realizes he looks kind of rough. The topic turns to the oncoming storm. Bennett asks if she's figured out the fireplace situation and she says yes, which seems to make him jealous, asking who taught you and all that. There's some tense silence before the guy decides to go home. But of course he has to salt the earth a little before doing so. And if you need anything. Yeah? Her dumb, recently enlarged heart paused, waiting to hear what he would offer. Call Logan. He has a plow. Jesus. Well, that'll kill the passion real fast, huh? Bennett runs into his sister's book club on the way out, where we're introduced to Darius, Jacob's boyfriend, which is cool and great and nice and all, but unless they serve a purpose for plot reasons, I'm just going to chalk it up to diversity points. Admittedly, there's nothing wrong with that. Normalizing queer people in relationships is good, and I won't lie, it's kind of nice to read something that tries to do that, but I can't help but feel like it's a little, tokenizing, if that makes sense. Despite the Christmas tree farm being closed because of the storm, the book club members decide that it would be a lovely idea to just get a tree anyway, going off of the honor system. Bennett doesn't want Kira to end up freaking out or something if she sees these people stealing her trees, so he goes along with them. They end up sort of snooping around in that nasty old barn for dead bodies and treasure or something like that. Bennett sees a shovel and some salt in a corner and realizes that Kira probably doesn't know how to dig her way out of the house. He convinces himself that he can just, bring her the goods and dip, but it's a romance book. We all know that's not happening. He asks the book club buddies to take his pups to Logan's while he tends to Kira. He approaches her house and knocks on the door, forcing Kira to leave her warm and cozy blanket cocoon. When she opens the door, he more or less shoves the shovel and salt at her, and then he sees that she already has some ready by the door. Well, There goes his excuse. Seeing as she's got everything handled, Bennett suggests he should go, and Kira almost begs him to stay. For safety reasons, of course. She manages to get him inside. She ushers him into a quasi-blanket fort she'd made near the fireplace by hanging up some blankets in the otherwise drafty doorways, and she tells him to take his pants off. They're wet, after all, and cold. Wet and cold. From the snow. Bennett, of course, refuses, and the look on his face when she calls him a stubborn ass is very pleasing to her. She runs off to go get him a fluffy pink robe to wear while she dries his clothes. He, of course, balks at the idea of wearing something so girly, but it's that or nothing. I have a feeling he's going to end up choosing nothing after a while, but who knows? The two settle in and watch some movies. As it turns out, Kira had gotten better Wi-Fi, which proves she's not just using him like Nicole was. They share some stories about the kind of Christmases they each had, and Bennett tells Kira about the time his cousin gifted him a bottle of, I'll just call it silly lotion, and his grandma made a comment about him getting a lot of use out of it. It dampened his drive so much that he couldn't practice self-love for months, if you know what I mean. After a fair bit of laughing and rolling around, Kira offers to make some lunch. Right when she gets up to do that, Bennett grabs her wrist and pulls her back down and, well, I don't gotta explain much more, do I? They don't get down to brass tacks quite yet, though. How exciting, right? Lunch will be needed after all if they want to keep their stamina up. While Kira's looking for some soup, Bennett starts complimenting her and things get a little dicey. She goes out of her way to explain her past of being a less than nice woman. How she'd only donated most of her trust fund to charity because it would piss off her mom. How she only saw her maid as a person after she got so sick she couldn't show up to work, and the other woman who covered for her made her coffee wrong. All that stuff. But it doesn't shake Bennett. He encourages her, telling her basically to look at all she's done now and how clever and brave she is for doing it, which is sweet, admittedly. After sharing a meal, Bennett has to go to the little Bennett's room, and while he's gone, his phone starts buzzing on the coffee table. Right as Kira's about to accidentally knock it over, he comes back suggesting that the bathroom would need to be fixed at some point. I wonder who could do that. The rest of the scene plays out as anticipated. She tells him about the calls and texts. He gets that look on his face, prompting her to ask questions. It's Nicole. She used him. She uses him every year. No, they're not together. And no, he doesn't love her. Honestly, that exchange went a lot better than I was anticipating, so go off. You know what else goes off? The power. Kira doesn't have a generator. I'm not even sure why Bennett asked, honestly, but all right. At least there's a fireplace, but the room could really use some more light. Good thing she has candles. Okay, I know the candles are for ambiance and, plot shenanigans, but not even having a flashlight is pretty criminal. So Kira pulls Bennett upstairs because she's afraid of the dark, I guess, and when they're up there, he realizes that her mattress doesn't have sheets. Of course she doesn't sleep in her room. That house is frigid. Why would she even want to? I'm not sure why Bennett's so shocked about this, but he is regardless and starts to take the mattress off the bed so he can bring it downstairs. Kira only mildly and playfully protests, but this man is serious. He asks her to please let him do it for her, because damn it, if the thought of her sleeping alone on a couch doesn't make him want to cry. And with that earnest intensity, Kira gets it, finally, and lets him help. Once the bed's downstairs, Bennett starts lighting the candles, and he notices they have some interesting names. All of our favorite book tropes. What's your favorite? Mine is Grumpy Sunshine. I'm the grumpy, if you can't tell. And then once the mood is set and the bed is made, we get to chapter 18. And it's a long chapter. 20 pages of, well, and I am not going to detail all of it. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't because I skimmed that chapter so fast. I'm not averse to intimacy, not at all. I just got kind of embarrassed. I don't do spicy romance very much, so I don't know. It just kind of felt like I was intruding, After a shower and all that, they're playing Scrabble. Naughty Scrabble. And they do that thing where they agree that their relationship won't extend past the holidays, with Bennett promising that he won't stay past the new year to try and fix her or whatever. Is this supposed to be romantic? This whole ordeal of protecting each other from themselves? This is a common thing with these sorts of romances, I know, but maybe I've just had a bad week. Plus, when we follow the formula, we all know that this tactic never works. And it doesn't work in real life either, folks. Believe me. I guess the author decides that now is a good point to tie the whole dead body buried treasure plot back into things, because Bennett mentions it, and now Kira's all invested in finding it because if there's treasure buried anywhere, she's gotta know. She gets really into it, super excited and all. And then the dread of loneliness hits her. Once Bennett's gone, what will truly be left of her? Way to ruin the mood. But he comforts her and she lets him, allowing herself to enjoy the temporary bliss for the moments she can and trying not to think too hard about the upcoming fallout. When Kira wakes up the next morning, her bed is empty. That can't bode well. She looks around for signs of Bennett and sees he left a hot cup of joe for her on the side table. When pondering where he may have slunk off to, she looks outside at the winter wonderland that appeared overnight and gets this desperate urge to go outside and play. After putting herself in layers and running outside, she finds that the handyman's gotten to work shoveling the snow. But it seems like he's gone off course. Big Bennett-sized footprints track off into the trees, and when Kira follows his tracks, she finds him cutting down a tree. He'd intended to surprise her, but she kind of ruined it by showing up. The thought fills Kira with delight, and she tackle hugs him more or less before they both have a snowball fight. When they pull the tree back inside, they flirt some more, and do y'all remember how Bennett had convinced himself that he was manipulating Kira, taking advantage of her and all? Well, while he makes breakfast, it's the lovely lady's turn to feel the exact same way, but mirrored. Of course, she somehow convinces herself that she'd be manipulating him by asking him to stay, that there's something inherent to her character that makes her want to take advantage of good men, because apparently wanting things and recognizing what it would take to get them makes you bad. Isn't this so fun? Look, I've been there. I've done that. Got the t-shirt. Went to therapy. It made me kind of sad, honestly, to read through this and recognize the same thought process I used to have in this character. It's not fun to be there. I felt really bad for Kira, yet I also wanted to just grab her by the shoulders and shake her really hard, something I wish someone had done to me a long time ago. Anyway, Bennett notices that Kira's prickly nature has returned after breakfast when they both ascend to the attic in search of ornaments for the tree. He keeps to himself mostly and treads lightly because he thinks he understands what's going on in her mind. Spoiler alert, he doesn't. People are not mind readers, shockingly. They find a box of creepy, haunted-looking Santa dolls. It doesn't take much longer to find the ornaments, and when they unwrap the little baubles, the two lovers are in such awe of the beautiful and intricate designs painted on them. On the way out, with the box on her hip, Kira knocks over a different box, and letters spill out everywhere. They're love letters. Bennett sighs about how people don't write letters anymore, all we have are DMs or something, wah, technology, bad. Don't get me wrong, though. A handwritten letter will always be infinitely more thoughtful, and I am pro-letter. Just, I don't know, ham-fisting it into a scene like this isn't really my cup of tea. The romance and sensuality of it all, because you know there was some dirtiness in them there papers, sets the mood, and Ben and Kira have relations again. When they're, finished, they both hear the sound of Logan's plow approaching, marking the swift end of their make-believe domesticity. Some small amount of time passes, and Kira's bidding her Rent-a-Santa adieu. It seems Bennett unfortunately held his ground and didn't take the gig, but he has taken up the mantle of being her fucking husband. He's basically spent the last, week or 2 or 3 shacking it up with our Kira and helping her out around the farm. Oh, this is so not going to end well. I mean, we know it will because all romances have their happily ever after, but not before the third act breakup. So this will surely be their ruin. Even Kira knows that this is an epically bad idea. Please stop. Regardless, she decides that her future mental health isn't more important than her present comfort. I can't say I've never related, but jeez, did I seem that pathetic when I did it? So anyway, they head back inside the farmhouse that's been decorated to the nines. Suddenly, Kira North does not hate Christmas anymore. All she needed was love this whole time. While Bennett works remotely and Kira reads more smutty letters between dead people, Chloe calls, or FaceTimes. She notices a glow in her sister, and once again, I had to clench my butthole, because what do you mean Kira's glowing? If she ends up being pregnant? I mean, could she be? Bennett only brought 2 silly balloons, if you catch my drift. Regardless of that, Chloe rejoices in the fact that her sister's getting some, and Bennett's off to the side trying not to listen while a red blush creeps up his neck. After he excuses himself, the 2 women keep on chatting, and once again, we're told just how southern these southern belles are, and I hate it, honestly. It feels like it's just right out of a poorly written movie. And I get that you can only show so much in writing, but laying it on this thickly makes it feel so disingenuous. Listen to this. "Your southern is coming out," Chloe teased, her accent thickening the longer she spoke. Kira could feel it happening, her words slowing down, thick and syrupy like the sweet tea Elaine used to make in the summer. Syrupy tea? Fucking ew. Hush your mouth, Kira gasped, and Chloe giggled at the phrase. Well, I declare, sister, you look madder 'n wet hen. Kira's laughter joined Chloe's. Remember how Mima always used to say that about Mama when we get our shoes dirty? Okay, look, I do know that they're supposed to be giggling and having fun and like intentionally being super Southern, but golly gee willikers, that was painful to read. All that was missing was a bless her heart somewhere in there. Should have gone for a bingo, Laurie, really. You know, listening back, I think what bothers me the most about it is the fact that it's written in proper English, despite us being told that this is supposed to sound Southern, like there's supposed to be a twang to it. But at the same time, people with that twang, people from the South, don't say, oh, remember when Mama, it's member and Mama did this? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just the people I've been around. But if I'm writing somebody with an accent, I am noting all of those different vocal quirks by leaving out G's and shortening words and using apostrophes to show that parts of the words are being left out. But maybe I'm just from a different kind of South. I don't know. Pretty soon after, they hang up and Bennett walks back into the warm blanket fort and they, try to keep themselves aglow. A couple days later, who should appear at Kira's front door but none other than Jeannie. She's been trying to get a hold of Bennett for days, but obviously he's been busy with other things. While his sister's trying to pry information from him, she starts to ask if he's moving back east, if it's serious. And when he says no, Jeannie says the funniest shit I've ever heard. You moved in with her, bro. Legitimately, that one line made me belly laugh a lot. Screw Pilates, honestly, I'm gonna start reading more Laurie Gilmore books. Jeannie continues putting pressure on Bennett. Why wouldn't he want to move back anyway? Family's there, and unlike Kira, he doesn't loathe his, and now he's got a girl. Not to mention the whole remote work thing. As much as he hates to admit it, she has a point. But I guess he's so ashamed of Nicole that he can't really bring himself to agree, not to her face at least. Kira steps out fresh out of the shower and bundled in a coat. It's kind of awkward, but basically just ends in Kira being invited along to the siblings' Christmas plans. They'll be visiting Logan's grandparents' place, and Kira agrees to come along because she doesn't want to be alone on Christmas. As Jeannie is walking off, pleased with herself, Kira invites her to join her and Iris the next day at a wreath-making class. Jeannie agrees, super, and off she goes with Logan's truck. We cut to the class immediately after, and it's just a grand old time. And Kira has fun, and everyone's so nice to her, and for once she thinks she's actually doing a good job and making good decisions, all on her own. It was a pretty sweet scene, not gonna lie. I really liked it. On Christmas Day, everyone's having a grand old time at Logan's grandparents' place. Definitely not awkward at all. Not in the slightest. The characters in this book are shockingly sex positive. Like, even this little old granny is nudge, winking at Kira and saying, good for you, in regards to the whole living together sorta kind of thing. Even Logan's like, Graham, can you stop? And she goes on about how nice it is. Two consenting adults, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, yeah, there are some older people out there who aren't complete prudes, but I get wanting to be subversive and all, but it just felt like low-hanging fruit yet again. Everyone and their mom is here at this little Christmas get-together. The book club peeps and Hazel and Annie, if you remember them. They call it a Christmas Day open house. It's warm and cozy and nice, and Kira's making friends and connecting with them. It's a sweet moment until some guy Annie's had her eyes on for a while shows up with another woman. There's that like short exchange all women have with one another about slashing tires. I expected maybe some shenanigans would happen, but no. I'm not sure if I can give this a pass. I mean, I understand that there's a need to build up your side characters and all that. I get that doing all this is some kind of way to display that budding sense of community and friendship, but I don't know. It just feels like these characters' only purposes are for character development. It would just feel a bit more natural if Kira had interactions with these other people outside of group gatherings, like with Iris, because otherwise they just sort of feel like filler. Does that make sense? After some Secret Santa, it's time to go home. When in the car, Kira's moping and all that. Bennett, of course, asks what's wrong, and Kira sort of blurts it all out because she's super drunk, basically expressing that she doesn't want him to go, but that asking him to stay is selfish, and they already have an agreement. She cuts him off when Bennett suggests he wants to stay, telling him outright that he doesn't, which offends him, and rightfully so. Cue the monologuing about, this isn't real, you only like me because I'm helpless, people don't develop feelings as fast, etc. Bennett knows this is all a deflection. He knows it's bullshit and that she doesn't mean what she's saying, but when she tells him that they should stop their charade early and he should go pack his things, he doesn't fight her on it. He makes one final passionate declaration before Kira can hop out of the car once they're back at her place. You're not as bad as you think you are. This isn't what you're trying to make it out to be. I love you. You're perfect. All that. But of course it doesn't change anything. Yet. Later on, she's sitting in her living room feeling sorry for herself. Turns out Bennett had gotten her a gift. She opened it up to find socks with peaches on them. I haven't mentioned this yet, so now I'm going to because it's kind of important. Bennett had gotten into the habit of calling her Peaches as a nickname, which is a terrible nickname. Like, I know she's from Georgia and blah, blah, all of that, but Peach would suffice. Peaches feels weird, like a pet's name, an actual animal's name, not a term of endearment. It's so tragically unmoving that I'd take a baby or a sweetheart over Peaches any day, personally. But she doesn't let the gift sway her too much. Of course, she's a crying, blubbering mess, but she convinces herself she has to stay strong and that she made the right decision by pushing him away. Her sister wakes her up bright and early the next morning with another video call. Kira looks like Garbo, obviously, and she doesn't want to talk about it. No, she doesn't need Chloe to come home, but yes, she really does. Pathetically, she asks her twin how long it took her and her husband to fall in love, and Chloe answers, 1 day. How utopian, I guess. After a pause, Kira decides to gather up some courage and asks her sister about one other thing. She really does want to make the Christmas tree farm profitable year-round, but she'll need some financial backing, and could she please loan her some money? And Chloe, being the amazing, perfect sister that she is more than happy to agree. It's sweet, honestly, and I love that for them. We shift focus to Bennett now and how he's handling things. How is he handling things, you ask? By leaving town early. He's not even staying for New Year's festivities. Also, I guess Jeannie has a llama or something, and his name is Harry Styles. I want to let myself have fun and be silly and think that this is just the funniest thing ever, but I don't. Literally, what is the point? I hope I eat my words, though. Maybe Harry Styles will somehow become important in the next 40 pages. Jeannie tries to convince him to stay, and he's almost convinced, but Kira's rejection is just too fresh for him to even consider encroaching on her turf. A couple days later, Kira comes to the Pumpkin Spice Cafe in search of Bennett, only to learn that he's gone. And of course, that stings like a mother, but she finds herself being proud of him for leaving. Something about growth and how she needs to do more of it before she can call him back to Dream Harbor. Back in Cali, Bennett's scarfing down some Chinese food when the lovely Nicole appears. Hooray! Doing this in the next to last chapter is a choice. I can't say for certain if it's objectively good or bad, but I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. So Nicole asks to come in and Bennett can't say no, and she's wearing a sleazy dress and some heels tall enough to turn her 5'3" into at least 5'6". Are you serious? Look, if you're going for man-eater vibes, please put her in some Louboutins, not some 3-inch kitten heels. Bennett's not at all happy to see her, and neither are the dogs. They don't like her, and she doesn't like them, so it means she's evil. Do y'all see what I was talking about earlier? Like, yes, Nicole is a manipulator who's only interested in herself. That alone should be enough for the audience to indicate she's not a great person. Why insist on adding this detail about how she doesn't like dogs? I don't think I'll ever understand dog people. I like dogs and they like me. They're really sweet and intelligent creatures, but I will never call myself a dog person because of this sort of attitude people hold. It's almost a crime to not boop the snoot of their heckin' cute doggo or fucking whatever. It's mad weird to me. And I cannot be alone in this. But anyway, no shenanigans come about. Bennett's honest, mostly, with Nicole, telling her that he can't do this whole song and dance anymore. And the way Laurie writes Nicole is just so weird. She sets this character up like she's supposed to be some master manipulator, but at the same time, she accepts Bennett's rejection almost outright. She says that she was under the impression that they both liked their arrangement, and I don't know how true this is to her, but Bennett himself acknowledges inwardly that he never told her how he felt, so how could he expect her to know if he was always right there for her? I'm not really convinced Nicole is the bad guy here. Not the only bad guy, I mean. It takes two in any relationship, platonic, romantic, familial, or otherwise. If someone isn't happy, if they want things to change, they have to speak up or risk letting their discomfort get to the point of no return. And in today's age where we're more disconnected than ever, maintaining our connections is more important to our psyches, our souls. Nicole barely tries to convince him that she can change and be ready for a relationship or something, but they both know that it isn't true. And so, with only a few tears, Bennett sends his old flame away to celebrate New Year's Eve on her own. A month later, Kira returns to her farmhouse after attending one of Iris's yoga classes and greets her pit bull rescue named Benny. She rescued a pit bull. She must be Mother Teresa then. All right, rescuing dogs or any animal, honestly, is a noble cause. I won't deny that. But to me, the whole loving dogs makes you good thing is just laid on so thick that it's become annoying, really. But Anyway, her heater's all fixed now, and everything in her house is more or less back to normal aside from the Christmas lights she's kept up. As it turns out, her life's been bustling with new and exciting things. Book clubs, cooking classes, a little side hustle at a local eatery. Kira's social life is blossoming, but she still misses Bennett. So she sent him a letter pouring her heart out to him a few days prior to this, and she's been a ball of nerves ever since. While she's fretting over a pot of soup, her dog starts growling out the window. While checking out what's going on, she sees the silhouette of 3 dogs. 3 very familiar dogs. The lights in the Christmas tree cabin had also been turned on for some reason. So she bundles up and takes Benny outside with her. The dogs all kind of greet each other, and I guess this somehow goes off without a hitch. I don't really think a dog that growls would be so keen on meeting strangers, but all right. I'm not a dog psychologist, so I'll just go with it. Anyway, the pups make fast friends and they go scamper off to play among the trees. How convenient, I guess. Inside the cabin is a tree adorned with letters. She begins opening them, and each is a message from Bennett explaining he got her letter, he's glad she told him to come back, how he loves her and why, and all that mushy, lovey-dovey cute stuff. Bennett appears from his hiding spot in the shadows, much to Kira's delight. They return to the farmhouse with their little dog pack and reaffirm that yes, they love each other, and yes, they want to be together, and no, they don't care how crazy it is. All of that stuff. There's an implied intimate scene where they go check out the mattress, and that's basically it. They got their happily ever after. But before we go, they have to have one last hurrah. One more not so implied intimate scene. Then there's the epilogue. It's pretty straightforward. It's spring or summer, and Bennett made a garden for Kira to grow some veggies for pickling. Her dream. Bennett's doing some digging in the garden when he hits something hard. And it's the treasure. There's a note inside from Edwin saying that he was hiding it from his greedy cousin. It's got some fine jewelry in it. Instead of wanting to keep it, they decide to pawn them and use the funds to bring the rickety old barn back to life. They can use it as a venue and rent the space out for various celebrations, including weddings. I can't really say I'm mad at that decision necessarily. I just kind of find myself morally opposed to trading in someone else's valued treasures for cash. I know Edwin and Ellen are dead and all, but it's like the premise. Even if I believed that they'd approve of my selling them, unless I specifically had permission to do so, I wouldn't imply that I did. Does that make sense? Is that weird? I had higher hopes for this novel at the beginning, but ultimately it wound up being pretty middle of the road for me. I wanted to give it 3 stars, but I can't in good conscience give it more than a 2.5. It's a perfectly average romance with a really cute setting, and although it is perfectly satisfying as a romance novel, there were too many objective writing issues to make it anything worth, well, writing home about. I know that side characters are side characters for a reason, but they're still characters nonetheless. And there were a lot of them, yeah, but that lot of them fell really, really flat. The mayor doesn't show up outside of the town hall meeting. Jacob and Darius are gay, which is fine and all, but who are they really? We have Alex, whose only purpose is being a non-binary expositor. The other couples sure do exist. And then there's Annie, who does what? Serves as comedic relief as the chronically single blonde. And why the hell was Harry Styles the llama even brought into this? Side characters don't need to have rich and detailed lives within the narrative of the story, but they do need to serve more than one purpose. Because when they don't, they're no longer characters. They're plot devices. And boring ones at that. The whole buried treasure, dead body subplot was inconsistently woven throughout the story in a way that I didn't really like. It's a subplot for a reason, I know, but it really only came up when it was convenient as a way to push the narrative forward. It felt kind of like it was put there after the fact once the publisher realized the story dragged on without it. Personally. And I know I've griped about this a lot, but you know, conclusions and all. I cannot stand this notion of specific personality traits proving that someone is good or bad. Everything is nuanced. I can't even stand it when people do this in real life either. And maybe I shouldn't be too harsh about this, right? It's just a book after all, and something, I shouldn't expect authors to be mindful of every moral dilemma, especially minor ones like this, but Jesus Christ, give the dog's good narrative a fucking break. You know, something I forgot to mention, and I'm totally going off script here, is okay. So the thing with the dogs, right? It's so hard for me to believe that this author really likes dogs when she's just gotten rid of them for convenience for like half of the book. They're only really brought up to show that people are good or bad, and that's really it. They don't have a purpose. They don't need to be taken care of or anything because there's magically somebody else to do that. So like, I don't know, just the magical whooshing away of the dogs when they're not convenient or cute to the story is kind of a red flag to me. And I think that is exactly what has set me off this entire time. The pacing was interesting. Though, to be fair, and to give Laurie Gilmore some credit, I think that was intentional. This romance is meant to be cozy, comforting, lovely, aesthetically pleasing to the mind, if you will. So it makes sense that the nice, fluffy, and smutty parts are meant to meander and take their time. But when it came to the end, it was more than a bit rushed, in my opinion. I think that tends to be the standard with any romance. Once we feel the relief of the happily ever after, why continue the story for too long, right? But we could have had more than a chapter and a half. I really think letting the audience bask in the glow of happiness for a little bit longer would be all right, but that's just me. If you take out all of that stuff, which is most of the book, I'll admit, the story is good. It follows the equation just like it needs to, and there isn't anything wrong with that. These kinds of romances aren't supposed to be all that exciting or daring or anything. It's not meant to break the mold, so to speak, and it doesn't, just as God intended. Anyway, that's The Christmas Tree Farm. What did you think? Was this perfectly romantic in all the ways? Was this cringe and bad and totally lame? Let me know. I'm always interested. Please don't forget to like and subscribe because my heart's on the line, and that kind of rhymed. Thank you so much for sticking around. I'll see y'all next time.